if it doesn't work out, you can do something else. It's not a fait accompli, but to not try, to not do what your passion is, or some version of that. It's not going to be perfect initially, and that's okay. Who cares? Nothing's perfect initially, but you did it, and it was great. You have to really have an objective viewpoint of yourself. That's the other thing I have found takes a long time. And I didn't get to this point until very, very recently. And that is to be able to say, I'm really good at this. To actually be able to say that without ego, without competition, without being hurtful, just, I'm really good at this. You must get yourself out of the victim role so that you can grow into your new act, your new career, your new self. So let change be your graceful high wire act instead of letting this big life change drag you down. I'll never be the same. I'll never trust anybody again. I can't believe this happened to me. Stop it now. Stuff happens to everybody. And this is for you to grow. And if you look at it that way, you will.
Our guest today is one of those rare individuals who can make you laugh while you're going through a painful experience. She's a highly skilled and highly rated divorce mediator with 11 years experience, as well as 9 years in private practice family law. She's the founder of Divorce Resource, Inc., providing mediation and filing services for divorces, legal separations, paternity cases, and she's essentially a paralegal on steroids. Her philosophy is to be honest and authentic, speak from the heart, and take responsibility for your actions. Welcome to the show, host of the Amicable Divorce podcast, and my friend, Judith Weigle.
Greetings, Mike. Greetings, everybody. It is a pleasure to be here today from almost sunny Los Angeles.
Yeah, she's coming in from almost sunny, because it seems a little dark over there. But I mean, You're in LA, you got that LA vibe going on. It's the place. I'm a Buffalonian, true. Like I was born and raised here, and this is my heart. But I'll tell you what, if there's ever somewhere I'd love to relocate to, it's sunny Cali. I mean, SoCo.
Yeah. No, it's worth it. It's worth it. Well, I'm a Pittsburgh girl.
I should say.
I'm a Pittsburgh girl. Yeah, I'm a Pittsburgh girl, and traveled around the country living in many different cities, doing a few things, mostly in entertainment. Love it out here.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mentioned this to you in our first conversation back when you had me on your show, is I have an uncle in Sherman Oaks, and it's just a beautiful area. And I went to visit him. It's been many years. I got to come back. And once this kind of pandemic seems to be a little bit more, when traveling seems to be a little bit more appropriate with everything that's going on, I definitely plan on coming down. And when I do that, I promise you, we go out for dinner, we'll get lunch, something.
Absolutely.
And come out and get the in-person experience. Guys, if you're tuning in, and this is the first time you've ever seen Judith, you can visit her website. It's the amicableddivorceexpert.com. That's her podcast, as I mentioned. Also, you'll see that she's very active on social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. She's there. You can tune into that easily because I made that all clickable in the show notes. So you don't have to go hunting to find Judith. That's where you're going to be able to find her. So what I'd love to do is kick this thing off, because one of my favorite aspects of interviewing people, especially with high accolades, is that there's usually this amazing transformational story within their main story. And you certainly have that. When you interviewed me on your show, I learned that you worked in the circus. So naturally, we kind of want to start there, right? What's cool is it was one of your dream jobs growing up. Now you're a divorce and legal separation expert. So let's focus on your time in the circus for a moment. And this is kind of funny, you were dancing bear, booking agent, location scout, and also a marketing director.
Right.
Did I get the progression right on that? I'm guessing the booking.
You got the progression right. And the dancing bear didn't come until the year I was married. So, this all circles back to divorce at some point in time and what I do in family law. But in terms of it being a dream job, this is one of the things I really wanted to bring out in this interview, knowing the context and the point and purpose of your show, Mike. Mm-hmm. And that is, I was a performing musician throughout high school. I then went to college, and my first year and a half, 2 years was in the music conservatory and in music education. But that didn't really suit me. When you go from high school to college, you're in a whole different playing field. So everything is relative. So when you're good in high school, you better be great in college. And I wasn't. So knowing that, my dad and I were talking because we had planned for a career in music and entertainment. He said, I'm okay with you changing majors, but do you have a plan? And I did not have a plan. I, like a lot of different people, have a variety of skills and talents. And if you don't have that one passion driving you to this one skill and talent, you get a little flustered. You really don't know which direction to go in. So I went in every direction. I had 6 majors. I wanted to be in communications, journalism, education, philosophy, English literature. I was a good writer. And then I had this background in entertainment as a performer in high school. I don't know where this came from, but this goes to, how do you plan a career path? So we're sitting in my dorm room, and my dad says, what do you want to do? Do you have a plan? And I said, I don't have a specific plan and a named direction to go in. Mm-hmm. But this is what I know. I want to work with as many cultures in the world humanly possible, and in as many places in the world possible too. And I just don't know what that means. But he had real trust in me, and he said, okay, so do what you need to do. So I ended up with those 6 majors. Graduated in 1975 from college. It wasn't until 1980 that the culmination, the expression of this want to work with as many cultures in as many places in the world just popped up. Things don't pop up immediately, but when you follow your gut, when you can get in tuned with this higher idea that can come out of you, you'll know it when you see it. So in those days, jobs were posted in the newspaper with human beings' names and phone numbers attached. And you dial the phone and the human being answers, and you actually get to have a conversation. Not the monster Indeed approach that we have in today's job-seeking market. The ad that I read in the paper said this: circus, circus, see the country. And everything they wanted as job skills, I had majored in. Funny enough. I had never seen a circus, but that's what it was. A variety of cultures of people, like in any circus, traveling around the country. And I went to Canada and Mexico as well. And it was the dream. It was wonderful. It used my skills and talents, and I can easily be a loner and travel by myself and be happy. So you have to kind of know that about yourself. What type of environment do you need to work in? Do you need a lot of people? Do you need a team? Well, I did, but not every single day. So that's how that got to be a dream job. And they hired me as marketing director. So again.
Okay. So I see, that's why you don't like to assume. I would have thought you were the bear first in the costume or whatever it was to work yourself into the marketing director. But no, you actually were hired as a marketing director and did all 4 of those roles over a 6-year span.
Exactly.
What I want to do, I don't like to interrupt. And I try to be mindful of not jumping in as excited as I am when I'm doing the show. But what's cool about what you said is it sounds like much of it was manifested, and I totally believe in that. And you were taking the actions on the things, and you were thinking about, very articulate in your mind about, these are the things I care about, these different cultures and all these like 6 different things you were doing in school and everything else. And it started to create this moment. And it's called the reticular activating system. Are you familiar with that?
I am not.
It's a 20-second version of it. When you buy a new car, you get the red Porsche, or you get the red Ford truck, or whatever it is, the car that you get. And all of a sudden you start to see, that same car. Like in LA, you probably see a lot more of those than you do in Western Europe, but you start to see it because your brain is solving for it. It's familiar, and it's what you're kind of, you're scoping it out. Right. And when you're not thinking of it, you see the same, you experience the same environment, but your brain doesn't attack it the same way. So that's kind of the reticular activating system, which is why people start to feel like they're unlocking all this stuff in life. It's because they're actually being more mindful of it. There's such thing as being mindfully present, right? And
I
so,
agree.
So I guess where I was mistaken was I thought you were like this little girl dreaming of always wanting to be in the circus or something.
Mm-mm.
And then when this newspaper ad that I remember you telling me about came out, so that's not even the case, which is really exciting for I want my listeners and my viewers who's tuning in on YouTube right now to think about this in your own light of how you don't know the magic moment that you can create, or that dream isn't always the thing that you sat there when you were 10. And I always say, like, I always try to connect back to that version of myself that was a big dreamer and make sure I'm still making that person happy, because that I feel like is my core, my soul, right? But you really don't know what you're going to thrive in or even be great in until you get through some of these life experiences. And it presented itself in a whole beautiful new way. You didn't know that you were going to be this marketing director for a circus that allowed you to do and thrive in those things you cared about, which is really exciting. You did that for 6 years. And I talked about transformation. And so from there, it didn't end there. Your story doesn't end there. After 6 years there, you transitioned into a talent buyer. You were doing corporate concerts. You were there for 17 years, almost 2 decades. Can you share about that transition?
Well, it was 6 years during the 80s, and then I went to Chicago and worked as a PR specialist for a woman who had written a book, and she wanted national media. So I got her Oprah, a bunch of national spots. I also worked for the North American Bear Company as their PR specialist in Chicago, which was, I have these jobs that cartoon characters would probably have. I've always said that. So
George Costanza on Seinfeld, maybe, right?
Yes, exactly. And then eventually I came out to Los Angeles, started working with my brother, producing live entertainment. Oh no, I was in Florida working with the Children's Opera Company in Sarasota, Florida for a while. Again, cartoon character jobs, but family entertainment, live entertainment. Chicago Lyric Opera. I forgot about the Chicago Lyric Opera. I was in Chicago while I was in Chicago. Anyway, landed in LA in 1989, started working, producing live entertainment for corporate events, both theme bands, cover bands, and celebrity artists. Had a bunch of fun. And then the transition, this interesting transition that presented itself to me, but it had to knock 3 times. So again, this is what a lot of people go through. Opportunity comes to you and you don't always see it as opportunity. And if it's really for you, it's not going to go away. It's going to be persistent.
It's like a frying pan, like ding, like, did you get it yet?
Yes, absolutely. So as I'm in Southern California, Los Angeles, kind of moved for about 7 years to Palm Springs. I do like to move. I actually love living in different places.
Yeah. Did you have family in LA though, or did you just pursue that?
My brother. My brother lived.
You did have a little bit.
Yeah, when I went to college, my sister went to college, my brother didn't, but he became enormously successful. You don't need to go to college to be successful.
Play that back about 20 times, everybody. We're not saying college is bad if that's what helps your career, but it's on a pedestal. And I just had that same conversation with Cam, my last guest I just interviewed, where, he talks about how his life, he got put in this, he went to school, you're spending all this money on school based on like what his uncle told him he needed to do because he had this lifestyle he was pursuing, but they went about it the wrong way to get him there. And now what he's doing is totally different, but he's also thriving in his own environment because it's what he cares and connected with. So yeah, I think it's so important for people to realize that a degree and $100,000 of college debt doesn't equal a highly successful career to follow. It may, and that may be your calling.
Depending on the profession that you want.
Yeah.
But if you don't really know your profession, don't go to college. Don't start spending the money. It's ridiculous. Get out in the world, work, live, and things will come to you.
We also live in a world where there's resources on YouTube, Google. There's ebooks you can learn from. There's podcasts you can learn from. Judy's show, my show. And there's all these great resources that if you want to learn a new skill, a new thing, and it's connected to your heart, and you know that you could monetize it at some point, start today, figure it out as you go, and eventually have it slide into more of your full-time vision for yourself.
Right.
Create a game plan, you can execute on it. But who would have known that, 15 years ago, that there'd be people making millions of dollars as YouTubers, where they spend their day on
I
YouTube
know.
or on Instagram.
Yep.
And does everybody? Absolutely not. But some people do. And so my point is, you don't know what tomorrow creates. And so there's a lot of unorthodox ways to, quote unquote, make it today. And hey, if you want to be a dentist, you do the dentist school, you go be a dentist. I'm happy for you. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think I certainly can tell you, I grew up in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, and everything in school was all about having that luxury career that you can kind of slap the certificate on the wall. And boy, when you see your 10-year reunion of high school, what are you going to say you became? And it's like, well, what if that thing that everybody feels is a pedestal job career isn't even fulfilling to you? You're going to end up being that person that may make some good money, but you're going to be miserable. And that's absolutely, nobody wants to be in that position.
Well, interestingly, with this last transition, so I was in Palm Springs, and I wrote a book. My office is a 3-ring circus. Must I take orders from clowns? So I wrote the book. I was then president of the Palm Springs Writers Guild, and 2 different female attorneys separately came to me and said, and I'm still in entertainment. I'm still working in live entertainment. It came to me and said, you have a very interesting personality to be a mediator. We need female mediators. You should really look into it. I had no idea what they were talking about. Didn't look into it, didn't care, loved entertainment. That's who I was my whole life. Yeah. I knew I had to transition back to Los Angeles because that's where you make real money, not in Palm Springs. And as I'm in the middle of the transition, sitting in a nail salon in Los Angeles, next to the woman who actually previously owned the company that I bought from her. I didn't start this company. I bought it and then grew it in a slightly different way. She said to me, third person, and 3 times is a charm. She said, you have a very interesting personality for a mediator. You should look into it. I said, all right, what is it and where do I go for training? And that started it. So I started out in general mediation, and then she became sick. I was renting space out of her suite at the time because I needed an office coming back to Los Angeles. I just happened to be there. Again, timing, picking up on life's signals and then timing. So I'm watching her go in this family law mediation filing business as I'm still doing entertainment. She became ill, needed somebody to take over temporarily. I said, well, I can meet with your clients. She had an assistant that could file everything, and she never came back. She never recovered. And so I bought the business from her a year after that.
That was Divorce Resource Company. Yeah, that's a cool name. I didn't realize when you're writing it, when I was writing the notes for this, it didn't click that it actually rhymes. Divorce Resource. So it's got a little PR.
I never thought about it either until you just said it. That never occurred to me. So this is the hardest job I've ever had. So let me just tell you, it was hugely lucrative being in entertainment. It's not as hugely lucrative being as a non-mediator in mediation and filing as a paralegal on steroids. But, and this is the other thing we need to know about transitioning in our careers. So I enjoyed learning it. I enjoyed the challenge of it. There were some years where I made good money in it, but there was a point where I became exhausted by it because you're living with people's sadness on a daily basis. So 7 years into the family law business, the podcast came up. It just, through circumstances, I'd been thinking about it. Somebody else had come up to me and said, you have an interesting personality for broadcast. I wasn't ready to push myself out there, and you have to be ready for that. I was the behind the scenes girl that was the marketing person, that was the PR person, that pushed other people out into the public.
You were building the spotlight for others to get into it. Yeah.
Right. But you have to be ready for it yourself. And then I said, well, what the heck? And in 2019, March 1st, I started the podcast about divorce. Well, what are you an expert at? Well, I was good at divorce. And so that became my platform, my foundation from which to do the next most fabulous thing. And that's actually talk about divorce. So I'm still running the business, and my clients give me excellent stories and circumstances upon which to build. And they love it. Actually, they call me and they say, were you talking about my divorce? I said, well, it's okay because I don't mention anybody's names. And I can be more honest and more vocal about how I see certain situations in divorce than I can be directly with people. So when you're in the divorce business, you walk on an emotional landmine on a daily basis because people are volatile. They're hurting. They've allowed you into their lives. So I'm very grateful at this most sensitive time. And you don't know them well enough to know that one little word could just hit them wrong or hit them in a very sensitive way. So I had to learn how to become even more sensitive than I normally am. And I thought I was sensitive.
Yeah.
But the divorce business gave me the platform for my first podcast.
Right.
And then some of my clients will come on the air after they're done with their divorce and talk about their experience, like you agreed to come on and talk about your experience. And that sharing with people is extremely important.
Yeah. I'm going to interject real quick. I wanted to make sure that I didn't interrupt you there, but I will say a couple things right there. First of all, it does take a special personality to be able to handle a fragile environment. And also, as I mentioned at the top of the show, bring a little bit of comedy into it, but that's only appropriate. I mean, if someone's like in the middle of breaking down because their husband just left them and you're like putting a clown suit on, they don't want that. It's not the time and place, but someone with a really good interpersonal skills and very good relator and connector like yourself is going to know when they kind of need that and work with them. And I'll say this, guys, kind of on the air, off the air. I've talked to Judy about my own situations. I've gone through divorce and I open up about it, and I'll even link that in here if people want to hear a little bit more of my story on your show. For a couple of reasons I bring that up. I've been on many shows now, and I really enjoyed the experience on your show because you're professional, you're prepared, you ask great follow-up questions, you wanted to make sure my story was helpful to others, and it flowed really well, and I felt cared for and listened to. Getting a little emotional here. No, you just killed it. You do a great job at what you do. So guys, check out her podcast, whether you're a child of divorce situation, or now you're a grown up and you could be many years divorced. And I'd say go back, listen to the show because you can relate. And the thing I wanted to not pass up is talking about podcasters and content and how you tell those real stories, but you're mindful of either changing the names or not revealing the names for privacy reasons, rather than you come on the show and just be general. Oh, if Sally did this and if Steve did this, this is what it would look like. That's going to go pretty flat. You do share real situations. People feel it. When it's real, there's an energy behind it. And you're still mindful of not exposing people. So there's a good balance there. And so absolutely, I feel you've been called to do that show. And interestingly enough, and I want people to remember your amazing story, from the circus to entertainment to, PR, being behind the scenes, to being on the mic now, right? Hosting your show. It's anybody, you don't know where life is going to take you, but you seem to be someone, even if it's 3 times, you kind of got your 3 at bats. You finally took the road and then you make the most of it. And I want people to be encouraged listening to the show. What's your Amicable Divorce podcast? That's what Judy did. That's what she's doing. But what's your version of it? For me, it was mic'd up. And it doesn't have to be a podcast. It could be, you guys could start a course and sell classes, or you can take people on tours around the world. Whatever your thing is, it's your thing.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure we didn't just like brush on what the podcast means to you and what you do. I can tell you I've experienced it as a listener of the show and as a guest of the show, and it's absolutely fabulous.
Well, Mike, your story was excellent because you used what was happening in your life during the divorce and career wise to say, new start. Divorce is a growth experience. Divorce is a new beginning. And you used it exactly like that. Didn't wallow in sadness. You weren't a victim. Well,
Yeah.
maybe not for too long.
Not for
You
too
weren't-
long. I
not for
was on
too
the mat, but I didn't sit there for weeks, months, or a year. Yeah.
Right. And you became a little daring. So we do have to have a little courage. We have to step out of our comfort zone. And, if it doesn't work out, you can do something else. It's not a fait accompli, but to not try, to not do what your passion is or some version of that. It's not going to be perfect initially, and that's okay. Who cares? Nothing's perfect initially, but you did it and it was great. And here you are now, and you don't just do the podcast, you actually build podcasts for other people, and then you do social media support, right?
Yeah. Well, it's really cool that you say it, you brought that up because in a way it's similar to you getting into mediation. Like you didn't know that wasn't something that you were driving towards, but the life situation you were in and the connections that you had led you there. And for me, I was helping an entrepreneurial friend of mine a couple of years ago with his podcast. And eventually through a connection and referral, I was doing a video for that client when I was still doing, I do social media content for podcasts. I don't do it separately from podcasting anymore. I'm very focused, which is something I learned in business that's helped me actually thrive. And so helping this one person out, Dave Mamano, a friend of mine, connection out in Rochester, New York, helping him back in like 2018 allowed me to learn podcasting. Eventually I started my own podcast and still had the media and marketing business, Social Chameleon, kind of doing its own thing. And eventually my clients, my friends, connections, new connections on LinkedIn were asking me about podcasting, and the other stuff kind of took a back seat. And I realized, and I'm sharing this with the audience so you can apply it to yourself, I was trying to water the forest. I was doing way too many different things. I was trying to be great in like 12 different directions.
Right.
And I ended up changing my mentality and saying, I'm going to take a garden here, a 10 by 10 piece of land. I'm going to water that every day, and I can nourish it, and I can come back and check on it, and I can see the growth, I can see the development, and I can also notice and see the weeds, recognize them, and get rid of them quickly, opposed to try to find weeds in a forest and get rid of them. Like you don't even know which ones were there yesterday, where they came from, and if it's from your efforts that good things grow or bad things come up about. So once I started focus on podcasting, the pandemic hit. It was kind of a turmoil situation, but I came out much stronger because of the focus and because surrounding myself with people who I've built a team. I have a great team of 4 guys, including myself now.
Wonderful.
And it all came from taking the most of that opportunity. Like I had that same thing where that door was knocking, and finally I answered the door and said, let's go with this. But it took the mentality to be okay with, like, I always thought I'd be doing a lot more with video, or even I wanted to be a movie director when I was a little kid.
Did you?
My dream was to be the next Spielberg or the next John Bonham. I'm also a drummer. I love drumming. Those are kind of my heroes growing up, music and film. And now I'm doing podcasting, which isn't, I'm doing video podcasting. So it's not really film or that, but it's I'm being creative. I'm having fun. I'm meeting people. And my new love is actually business. I love to see people take an idea, mold it into something, and then see it in like its highest light. And so that's like my new thing that gives me a rush is entrepreneurship. So you never know where you're going to end up, is my point.
You never know. And on top of that, it was 2005. So I was in the Palm Springs area at that time. It was 2005, and I said, I kind of feel a career change brewing, and I don't really know what it is. And so I sat down and I said, if I could just make money and be happy, of course, if I could just make money, though, at one thing, what would it be? And in 2005, I said, talk. That's all I would want to do is just talk. Now, you can talk in different mediums. You can be a corporate speaker. You can be a broadcaster. You can be a therapist, a mediator. So I wrote the book and I thought, well, okay, I'll be a public speaker and you need a credential. That's the book. Okay, so I wrote the book. And fast forward to 2019, it's all about talk. And here we are talking. And what I love about the podcast is I love engaging people in conversation. I can put people on the show that I feel are more accomplished than I am, make more money, more well-known. And it doesn't matter because it's my show. Mm-hmm. I'm in control. It's what I love. And I can now engage on a very equal level with people that I may not see as on an equal level. But all of a sudden, this skill and talent is something that nobody can take away from me. You have to really have an objective viewpoint of yourself. That's the other thing I have found takes a long time. And I didn't get to this point until very, very recently. And that is to be able to say, you know, I'm really good at this. Mm-hmm. To actually be able to say that without ego, without competition, without being hurtful, just, I'm really good at this.
Yeah, it's that reflection. Like if you don't go back and reflect, you kind of, you may not see your own growth because you're in it. That happens in anything. Like if you're in it so much and you're building, you got to step back and look at your art and see what you've actually done.
Yes, absolutely. And I really look forward to my interviews, whether I'm a guest, but especially when I'm interviewing somebody, I look forward to it. It's the highlight of my day. I can't wait.
I'm right there with you. I agree. Here's what we're going to do. We're taking a super late sponsorship timeout. That's fine. I'm the producer of the show. I can do this whenever I want. I love it. When we return, we're going to learn 3 biggest mistakes that people make when planning or requesting a divorce. We'll be right back. Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you. And that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight. And Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo, we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting. So what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today. All right, we're back in action with Judith. You guys can connect with her on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. She's super active there. You can also check out her website, theamicableddivorceexpert.com. Those links are all clickable in the show notes. So I teased it right before the break. The 3 biggest mistakes that people make when planning or requesting a divorce. Then I'd also love to hear the other side of it, the 3 smartest things that people can do or that you advise them to do when they're planning or going through a divorce.
Okay, so the 3 mistakes really morph into the 3 positive things. So the very, very first thing is you have to go through the emotional divorce before you file for the legal divorce. So the emotional divorce is emotionally disconnecting from your current relationship, which is your marriage. You have to go through a grieving stage. And we all know, I think most of us know, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross did the 5 stages of grieving if somebody dies. There are 2 more stages of grieving and divorce because the person hasn't died. They're actually very alive. And so you have to go through the extra steps of forgiveness and apology. Without those, you will not grow. So you have to go through the emotions of this disconnection first before you file legally, because it's still emotional legally, but you have so many decisions to make when you're in the legal arena that you want to be calm and settled, and you want to have sorted out any of the questions you have surrounding, is this the right thing to do? And resolve how you feel about your soon-to-be ex-spouse. Just resolve it and try not to be in anger stage when you file for the legal side of divorce. On the positive side of that, absolutely get legal advice. Without a doubt, it's the worst thing you can do. Well, I don't want to go see an attorney. I don't want to blow this up. No, you don't have to blow it up, but you do need to be well informed in your state about the legalities surrounding divorce. Okay, so that's step one negative, step one positive.
I'll say right there, boom, like I've done over 100 episodes and they have people, experts in all different fields. I can tell you because I've experienced this, so I know a little bit more about the divorce process. So spot on, guys. Anybody who's listening to that, please go back, maybe listen to that last couple minutes again. It's really, really true. You do need to get through the emotions so you can then make stronger mental decisions. Because if your head is way out of whack, these are big life-changing decisions for yourself and your family. And if you're making them under emotions, you know that what happens, you see people do it in business and in life and in sports. And when people make these emotional decisions, when they're really tied in the moment, typically you can be off the mark on it. So work through those things like Judith just said. And then when it's time to, dot the I's, cross the T's, write agreements, talk to your attorneys, you can come at it from more of a process standpoint and less of an emotional standpoint. I think that's really, really sound advice.
Thank you. Number 2, get your head out of the lion's mouth. So I really love using circus metaphors since I come from the circus. Get your head out of the lion's mouth. So a lot of times when we go to speak to our soon-to-be former spouses, depending on the nature of their personalities, we're fearful. We feel like we're putting our head in the lion's mouth. It's going to get bitten off. The way to avoid that is change the way you speak and change the way you behave. Because it takes 2 people to argue, it takes 1 person to neutralize that situation. So once you go through the emotional divorce, now you're set for, let's learn how to communicate differently. Let's learn how to behave differently. Being passive aggressive because you want to get back at your spouse for whatever they did wrong, get it out of the way. It doesn't hold water. It doesn't help you at all. It just causes you a lot more problems. So forget the passive aggressive behavior. And we don't learn how to communicate properly when we're under stressful situations and when we are feeling threatened. And we're scared when we're going through divorce. We don't know what that arena is. Well, at least the first time around. When you're in the second and third divorces, you do know. There's an author I want to give to your audience, and his name is Bill Eddy, E-D-D-Y. Bill wrote like 30 books on how to communicate in high conflict situations and with high conflict people. And he gives a very simple 4-step method that if you read his books, you will do so much better if you're divorcing a high conflict personality. Just in general, he teaches you how to communicate better. So communication and behavior, number 2, good and bad. Number 3, let change be your graceful high wire act. So divorce is supposed to be a growth experience. It is supposed to be a new beginning, closing one chapter, learning certain lessons, and opening up a new chapter in your life. Do not be a victim. I don't care why you're getting divorced. You must get yourself out of the victim role so that you can grow into your new act, your new career, your new self. So let change be your graceful high wire act instead of letting this big life change drag you down. I'll never be the same. I'll never trust anybody again. I can't believe this happened to me. Stop it now. Stuff happens to everybody. And this is for you to grow. And if you look at it that way, you will.
So good. Yeah. You got to really shed your skin a little bit of the past, and like you still can feel the hurt. And and I know just from my situation, there's things that still hurt, but it's like, I feel like I'm such a different person now. I've grown in a lot of ways and I can control it's in my control, which is good. And I'm not trying to, put anything a bad spin on how my ex-wife feels. I truly don't totally know how she feels, but I do notice maybe there's more, seems to be some tension or some pain still probably, or whatever it might be from the marriage, that I certainly hope that, and I'm saying this genuinely, that she can shed her skin from that and move on and be 1,000% happy presently in the moment. And anybody who's going through a tough thing, it could be loss of a family member, it could be losing a business, it could be a divorce situation, anything. It's going to hurt for sure. But again, like Judy said, if you're saying all these things in your head, these negative, like, that you're broken and you're not fixed and all this stuff that she was just mentioning, it's limiting beliefs, self-beliefs. And it's also connecting, tell me if you think this is accurate, it's connecting like these negative thoughts to the person still. And this person's totally either moved on or in a different place, and you should be improving every day too. So really, you gotta like take the two people or the situation for what it is today in the present day, and not continue to go back to those painful times. And it's just not healthy. Yeah.
Life happens for you.
There it is.
Not to you. That's the attitude. So I figured out who actually said it. I interviewed somebody that said it was a person named Brian Cady.
Okay.
Who I thought it was Tony Robbins, because I watched a Tony Robbins documentary on Netflix and he said it. And I love that phrase. Life happens for you, not to you. And so look at anything going on in your life and just say, what am I supposed to learn from this? Mm-hmm. Not, oh my God, why is this happening to me? I'm such a good person. I do everything right. Okay, great that you're a good person. You do everything right, but we're here to grow.
Yeah.
And so this is a growth experience, and use it like that, especially if you have minor children, as you do, Mike. Mm-hmm. It's imperative that both parents move forward from whatever the hurt was, learn from it, use it as, again, a stepping stone to a new beginning, so that you can enjoy the co-parenting. Because you should. You're always going to be a family on some level, connected through your child, and you may as well enjoy that experience.
Yeah.
Mike, how are you doing with it?
Yeah, there's so many good points to this interview that I know when I'm thinking about editing the promo for it, I usually try to keep it like under 2 minutes. I don't know how we're going to do it. I mean, we're going to probably just be like, Judith is on and tune in now, because I don't know because if I eliminate the other 58 minutes, it's going to be a disservice. So I hope that someone who's listening to the promo does click through to get to all of these great points. What you said there is so powerful, and it happens for you. And who knows who originated that idea? I know Tony Robbins mentions it. Ed Milet mentions it. I mentioned on my show, I believe it was part of the title of the interview. And it's so true, because when that thing happens, whatever it is that puts you in this horrible situation, it happens. And that's the truth of it. It happened, right? If it's a tornado, it happened. If it's a divorce, it happened. If it's a business that's failed, it's happened. But the thing is, that's not changing, because the past is written. It's in a book. Imagine just sitting on the desk. It's a book. But what you can do is now you can read that book, you can feel that book and experience it, and now go and do something with that information and change it. That's the happening for you. How can I internalize? You just articulate it better than I did, but and then take some action on taking a bad situation, and at least you could try to make it better. We don't know that a bad situation always turns into a great thing, but we certainly know if you just leave it there and it's a closed book, it's like buying a great book and never reading it. You're not doing anything with it. So why not look at it like, well, now what can I do to change this whole narrative? That's all we can do. The mindset has to be there first, and then the actions follow. I think that's an absolutely beautiful thing. You mentioned your book real quick. I don't want to get roll through it too fast. I know we're kind of at the top of the hour and we got to both go in our separate directions. But before I have you do that, you talked about My Office is a 3-Ring Circus is the name of the book. Must I Take Orders from Clowns? It's got comedy to it. It's a self-help business book. And kind of the big takeaways are that it's the ability to exercise the power and control you have to create, kind of on the topic of what we just talked about, create, choose, change anything in business and life. Can you elaborate on that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So I use circus stories. I use situations that happened to me while I was either a marketing director or a dancing bear on the circus to show people how to communicate and how to behave better, making them laugh in a business situation. Because I thought that people needed help. People don't know how to respond sometimes in business, whether it's to an employer, negotiating for a raise, looking for a job, or if you're a manager and you're in a sticky situation with employees. It takes a lot of finesse to get through situations. And when I was traveling as a marketing director, I was working with people I had never met in towns across the country. And to be able to tap into different cultural regions in the country and to be able to understand them and work harmoniously with them, you had to be very open and non-judgmental. And then I just learned from other people around the country. So one section was about verbal communication. The second section was about behavior. The third section was actually about how do you change? How do you change your job? How do you change your life situation? And there was one thing that I knew I wanted to bring up in this interview as I was thinking about it, driving here this morning. And that is, when you're looking for a career change, when you need to, when life has forced you to create a career change because your industry has gone away. I know that this could sound politically incorrect, but it's very correct. And that is, your age makes a difference in what you do. Use age to your benefit. So if you're in your 50s and 60s and you still have to work, because these are the critical years, people worry about, oh my gosh, well, what if something goes awry with my job or the business that I own, and what do I do? Use age to your advantage. There are jobs like divorce mediation. Nobody wants a 20-year-old to mediate for them. Right. You want somebody with some life experience under them, with a few lines on their face, to be able to talk with you. You don't want a 25-year-old sitting there trying to mediate a divorce. So don't think that youth is the end all and be all. So you take your age and you frame it properly to use in this new direction that you want to go in. That was really important that I wanted to say.
It's so much on perspective. Like if you're 16-year-old, if you're 16 right now or 21 and you're listening to this, you might feel like, everybody says I'm too young. Well, guess what? That could be a benefit. You got a lot ahead of you and you have a fresh perspective and you're not going to be jaded and have broken processes that you have to unlearn. So that's a great thing. Okay, well, I'm 50, so I'm mid-age. I don't know. It's too late to start a new career. I'm not that old, but okay. 50 is great. You got experience, plus you still do have time. We don't know when our end date is. So attack it like you got 50 more years. Go at it at that. And so you can be like, oh, I like being 50. 50 is cool. You can be 65. You can say, I want to do, like you just said, maybe get into doing something different. You have a entire life of experience that you can say, well, good thing I have this experience because now it puts me in position to make better decisions. So it's all just mindset shift. If you're too young, that's a good thing. If you're middle-aged, that's great. If you're older, that's great. It's great. It's just, what do you do with the situation?
It's how you frame and position it. So for the youth, I want to tell you, who do we go to for technology questions, for how to use our social media platforms? We go to the youth. I have often heard myself saying, I need to surround myself with millennials and Gen Zers. These people can support what I need to do to get my word out because they've got their finger on the pulse of all of that. But the youth also needs to understand how to appreciate age. We both need to work together because we can support each other in what we can bring to the table.
I'm 35. I feel like I'm right in the middle of that whole thing. Like sometimes people consider me, young, which I do, but like I grew up in an era where we had like Oregon Trail on our computer, like floppy disk. Like in the library, there was maybe one or two computers back in the day, 8-bit style. I got to experience the video games like from the early 80s of Atari into Nintendo into like PlayStation 5 or whatever's out now. Amazing graphics. I got to see all that. I got to see like the family phone that had a cord, the rotary phones we had growing up, and then the corded phone that had the buttons on it, to a TV you had to like turn the knob on, right? To having a remote control with 10 channels, which seemed huge, to now having 1,000 channels with streaming, being able to play YouTube on my TV and teach my mom how to do that. So I feel like the 35 to 40-year-olds have this like middle ground appreciation. And I will say that I don't like when I see a younger generation not appreciate the older generation, and sometimes it goes the other way around. Like the older generation,
Right? We can
doesn't,
easily write off the youth. No,
someone
you
who's
can't do
20 years
that.
old, oh, they don't know what they're doing yet, but like that person could absolutely know and unlock exactly what you need. And it's not always a need thing. You don't just talk to an elder and say, I need to learn from you, and the elder, I need to learn how to do Facebook, so I'm going to talk to a 21-year-old. Like, it shouldn't be, that's not how relationships work, but it's an appreciation and understanding and a willingness to say, you did life a lot differently when you were my age, but man, I would love to hear about it. What can I learn from you? And then it could be anybody a little bit older come down and say, like, you're doing things totally different than I did. I'd love to have a better appreciation. That would be just a beautiful world to live in, wouldn't it be? Where we all just say, we're different. And that could be 35-year-olds. We're different, but how can we appreciate each other? Holy smokes. I got chills thinking about it, that the world would just be a remarkable and welcoming place to live.
Wouldn't it? I agree.
So I know we're over by like 10 minutes. I have one more question. I don't care.
Okay.
My team meeting can wait. Sorry, Nate. Love you. But Judith has some more gold to drop here at the end of the episode. And this is what I do. I like to frame it. We talked about your book. It's called A Transition here, guys. I'm setting it up because we talked about Judith writing her book. And now we're going to talk about her being the author and protagonist in her own life story. Judith, you get to write the ending. God willing, you continue to live a long, prosperous, beautiful life. You're looking back on it, you're reflecting on it, and you get to define your legacy. What would that be?
That I was compassionate, empathetic, understanding, non-judgmental, that I took a lot of life's tough situations and worked through them. I was giving, unselfish, and courageous. So courage is a big thing I'm working on now. I need more courage. So that may sound ridiculous to say, but I need more courage. There are things I would still like to do that I'm a little too slow. I was a little too slow doing, and I'm really enacting them now. But, you know, sometimes we have to put ourselves in situations that are a little scary in order to focus, because you mentioned focus earlier. You know, too many weeds, too many irons in the fire, really skimming it down to just a couple things. That's my learning lesson right now, by the way. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. I think I've bitten off more than I can chew, but it's okay. Because I'm learning how to build a team. That was one of the things that I needed to learn how to do. I was a person that always worked by myself. For the circus, I traveled ahead of the show, lived in hotels, did it myself, saw the circus every 2 to 3 weeks, and then moved on. So I have to work on really narrowing down my field. And if I have to give up something, especially give up something that brings in revenue, because that thing is not the thing you really want to focus on anymore, it's other things, that's where the scary part is for me. So to look back, if you want me, you know, to do that look back, it would be that I had the courage to say, I really believe the new direction is going to be even more profitable, because we do need money to live. I mean, money can't be the first reason why you do a job, or I wouldn't be doing divorce work. I would still be in the live entertainment industry. But it's a stepping stone and to broadcasting, which I would like to build that platform a lot more. So courage. And Brene Brown on a TED Talk, one of my favorite TED Talks is Call to Courage. And that's what she does, a call to courage. I I will give that to somebody to watch.
I think that's great. And here's what I'm going to say. I know the greatest people in their profession, in their field, I'm a big sports guy, so I talk sports a lot. The greatest athletes, whatever, high performers, you pick the industry. They are always looking to get better and improve. And here you are coming on saying, I want my legacy to be that she was a courageous woman. And I know you appreciate what you've done and you've reflected on it and you're grateful for all the opportunities you have. But I'll tell you what, your story has a lot of underlying courage. I mean, the places you've moved, the careers you took on, it took courage to be willing to go and adapt into something totally different. It took courage to answer the bell, even if it took 3 times for it to ring. You finally said, hello, I'm gonna do it this time. Yeah. That took courage. It takes courage to meet with people who are at most likely their all-time low. They're going through divorce. They don't want to pick up the phone and have to call you because they just don't want to deal with it. And so you're talking to people when it's tough. It's not like you're not selling them tickets to Disney World. You're helping them through one of the most difficult times of their life, and it's ugly. It's hard. It could be sad. And I love to hear that you're still saying I could be more courageous and there's more to my story, which is encouraging.
Yeah, it could be.
And I think that's beautiful. But I also want you to remember, and part of why I love doing this show is I think people come on and they like, wow, I did some pretty cool stuff that I kind of forgot about. And I hope that you're having that. I see you smiling, you're nodding your head.
Thank you.
Certainly, you're an amazing person. At the end of the day, hey, who cares what our LinkedIn profile looks like? And it says that we did. Are you a great person? Are you a respected person? Do you respect yourself? And I can say that you're a respectable, respected, courageous woman. And this has been a lot of fun. And I'll say the last thing here before we go. If somebody came to me, and again, I'm the producer of my own show, which is fun. But if somebody came to me and said, all right, we got you Judith, and she's a divorce expert and mediation, and this is who you need to interview, and she's got a pretty cool story, check it out, and then interview her. I'd probably be like, is there a way we can maybe book somebody different? Not out of disrespect to you, but it's like, this is tough content to talk about. Divorce, I've been through it. Do I want to go down there? It's not something maybe that would be comfortable to do. So I probably would be like, what are you talking about? But I have to say, this is why I love doing the show and encourage people to get outside of your comfort zone. What may seem like a difficult topic or something that's unorthodox for the show, or maybe it doesn't seem like it has a good direction. Those tend to be the best episodes for me. Like when I interview the great influencers on Instagram, there's some good stories there and great times, but sometimes it's like, you meet the person, you don't really know what their story is going to be about. They're early on. Those are some of the best conversations. In this case, it's like, we're talking about divorce mediation. Who's going to jump for joy that we're going to, it's a tough conversation and it's not always exciting. It could be a little dry. Let's be real. And you, like, your personality totally makes it work and it's fun. And this is one of my favorite interviews I've done. So
God, Mike, thank you. This is one of my favorite interviews I've guested on. Thank you so much. And touche back to your audience, Mike was the first interview that I had done where I put my notes aside. I didn't even look at them. I just wanted it to be a conversation. And it was the very first absolutely 110% fulfilling conversation I had for that reason. And you were an easy person to talk to as well. Because you like to talk.
I'd say it's a dance. You're a dancing partner when you have a podcast and you interview people. So you're a great dancing partner. We can do it anytime. And let's dance in person down in SoCal. Yay. And I'd love to come. And it's funny. I'm legitimately thinking about doing that. It's just a matter of when, not if, it's when. So when I do it, I will give you a holler and let you know I'm coming down to California to enjoy it. And keep doing what you're doing. You definitely have purpose on this planet, and it's inspiring to me and anybody who's tuning in. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much, Mike, for having me. Appreciate it.
I'd like to give a huge shout out to everyone for tuning in, especially those who listen all the way to the end to hear this message. Seriously, I appreciate you, and my guests do as well. Giving a quick reminder to subscribe to this show. It's completely free and will allow you to receive notifications when new episodes are released. If you'd like to provide a tip as a gift, you can do so via patreon.com/micedup. It's spelled MIKED up. Patreon.com/micedup. You can give as little as $1 per month or as much as you'd like. Every dollar is greatly appreciated and completely unexpected. Appreciate your reviews and your messages coming in on social as well. Keep them coming. Your feedback is valuable and absolutely means the world to me. You can check out more episodes and content at mikeduppodcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon. You can also follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active, and it's at Mike DiCioccio, MIKEDICIOCCIO. Thank you so much for your continued support. You guys know what to do. Be great and be grateful.